Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another Innovation Space webinar. Um, while we are waiting for other to join us, I will like to introduce myself. I will be your host for today's webinar. My name is Sandra Nešić. I'm a lead business designer, innovation manager at ICT Hub. And maybe just to share a few words about innovation space webinars. So this is a space for us to talk about different topics that are related to corporate innovation. And over the past few months, we really discussed a lot of topics that are relevant to corporates in answering question why innovation is important in general, and for us, where to innovate, how to innovate, and what kind of prerequisites we need in place to make innovation a success for us. Today's Innovation Space webinar, as next webinars during October and November are going to be a bit special. They're going to be place where we are going to host our speakers at our corporate innovation conference. So I will use this opportunity as well to tell you a little bit more about something that we consider our flagship event. It's annual conference we are organizing this year for the third time. And as for all of us, this 2020 is unique and a special year, and because we have all, I think, innovated and adapted in so many ways in the way we live and work, we decided that organizing this event for us, it's very important, and we decided to do it online. But what we decided is to provide the opportunity for corporate innovators, leaders, innovation practitioners, entrepreneurs to connect, to share their experiences, and to learn from leading experts, is to have that opportunity for 3 days and not just one. So our conference this year is going to be about three different topics, and every topic is going to have its own dedicated day. The first day of the conference, it's all about leading innovation. The second day is about designing innovation. And the third day is about championing innovation. We really wanted to emphasize and give support to every company and everyone who's really trying to survive and thrive for the future that is so relevant in these unprecedented times that we're in. And organizing this conference is a big undertake for us at ICT Hub, but we really thought that it's important to have this place of learning and gathering for all of us. Our first day of the conference is actually coming really soon. It's next week at September 30th. And as I mentioned, is about leading innovation. Why we decided to go with leading innovation as maybe not most important, but very important topic. First of all, it's something that's been that is fundamentally very important when it comes to corporate innovation, and something that's not something that hasn't received so many attention in the space on different events and education program throughout, I think, this region especially. So we decided to start with why innovation, and what kind of leadership for innovation we need in place to make it a success for a company. And we managed to gather a great group of people we admire and love, and who are our friends and people that really have to share something great. And I would like to name them. First of all, we have a special opportunity to hear Professor Rita McGrath from Columbia Business School, and she will be our opening keynote speaker. Then we will host leaders from local and regional companies coming from different industries and sharing their stories about leadership in these times of crisis. Um, our today's guest and Christian Ragnar from Strategy Tool will join us in two different parallel sessions, and we will talk more about what it takes to stay ahead of the wave and create that kind of transformation you need for the future. We'll have Vladimir Volic, someone who's very, really familiar to our local audience and our dear guest and lecturer at different occasions. And we will wrap up with, um, I think, one of the most challenging and the topics that is, I think, really important when it comes to leading innovation, what is actually a challenge for leadership to make innovation a success, and how to go from making that self-awareness to wiser actions. And Sonia Krasovic will be with us on that topic. And without any more time on my side, I would like to introduce our today's guest. Johan Persson is director at consultancy company Innovation 360, and he will share his thoughts and experiences about innovation strategy as a way to grow. This presentation on his side will be followed by a Q&A session. You can always post your questions in Q&A box during the webinar. We will be free to interrupt Johan if it's needed to answer your questions, and we can always leave some of the questions for the end. While we are here, before going in depth on making Johan introduced here, I would like to share maybe some technical things with you. So we cannot see you or hear you, but you can always go to chat box and post things that you would like us to know, or if you have questions for us, go to Q&A box. And you can go to our previous webinars at our learning platform ehub.rs or to our YouTube channel. So back to Johan. He's a friend of a friend, and I'm so glad that this introduction came at the time when talking about innovation strategy and the kind of support Innovation 360 is providing to not just corporates but companies all over the world is important more than ever. He's director at Innovation 360, and besides, I must say that he's making a great lasagna. He's actually expert for innovation strategy, and his background comes from sitting on both sides of the table, working on and starting companies that are startups, and working on strategic functions that are for big and multinational companies, actually help them to learn what it really takes to become good in innovation, and to consult now all of these companies in the best possible way. Johan, I would like to introduce you now, and you can just address our audience. But before we start, I would like to also hear our audience on their thoughts on importance of innovation for the growth, and do they have innovation strategies that companies they work with are have any innovation strategy in place. Welcome. And if it's okay with you, I would share those few questions, and we can get the feedback from the audience and maybe start from there.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay, I will invite all of you to go to your phone or another tab in your browser and go to menti.com, and you can use the code 3043132, where that code will lead you to our first question. I'm just going to change my screen for those questions, and we can see first one. Innovation is important to your growth strategy on scale from, I even have 0 to 10. Let us know what is that in your case. Feel free to share. I mean, this data is always important.
It looks like our audience thinks that innovation is fairly important.
It is, and I don't know what you say. Is that in line with something that all kind of researches and statistics are telling us? Maybe 85% of all
I
CEOs.
guess we will see once I start my presentation.
Okay, not to reveal.
Let's leave a little bit of a cliffhanger.
Okay. Okay, it is fairly important. If we go to another question, which is actually helping us navigate that importance of innovation for our growth, and ask ourselves if we have innovation strategy for our business, then we have a situation where we can wait maybe for a couple of more answers and see what the situation there. But in general, here it's kind of mixed, because we recognize the importance, but we don't have a way how to go around that importance and what kind of choices to make, or that innovation strategy that is needed for us. So either we don't have it, or it hasn't been communicated to us, so we are not aware of it. We are not sure if our company has any innovation strategy, and great if we have one and we are aware of it, and it's communicated to us in a good way. Okay, I will stop sharing my screen now, and Johan, I invite you to start your presentation and reveal a bit more about the work you do and your thoughts and experiences about innovation strategy.
Thank you. Let's see. I'm just going to make sure that we start in the right position, and then we're going to go. So I know we tested this before, so it should work, but it's not working now. So I'm just going to try.
Trouble in sharing this.
Let's see if I can make it happen. There we go. What about now? There we go.
Perfect.
Easy. So for those of you who did not have an innovation strategy, I have good news. Today you will learn how you can develop one if you want one. I'm going to talk a little bit about how you can develop an innovation strategy in a relatively straightforward and easy way. And I will go through an example where we worked with a company that shall remain unnamed, but it's a SaaS company and selling software as a service in a business-to-business context. And just see how we work with them and how we, in a very quick way, developed an innovation strategy for them. So without any further ado, let's get to it. So first, let me introduce Innovation 360, my employer, where I work. First of all, we believe in sharing. Sharing is caring. So we actually publish our methodologies in books. We have a book series coming out. Part 1 and part 5 have already been published. So if you want to learn more about some of the methodology that I will talk about today, you can read about it there. We are a global, small but global company, headquartered in Stockholm, Sweden, but we also have offices in New York City, in Sydney, and in Toronto. And we have a network of people that we have accredited in the use of our tools and our methods, that we call licensed practitioners, and there's 250 of those across the globe. We have measured innovation capabilities of 5,000 plus companies in 105 countries. And we will get into a little bit about what we use that data for. And we have a big, hairy, audacious goal that we will probably not solve one of the UN's sustainability goals, but we hope that our methods and methodologies will have, touched one of the entrepreneurs or companies that will solve one of these goals. And we want to do that by 2030. We have worked with companies ranging from small to big, from private to public. You see some of the examples of the companies here to the right. But really, innovation is a topic that really touches essentially all organizations. So we are therefore working with almost companies of all sizes, organizations of all sizes. So Sandra actually mentioned the importance of innovation strategies. So McKinsey has actually done surveys looking at what is the importance of innovation. And when you ask executives, 84% say that innovation is important to their growth strategy, but 6% say they are satisfied with the outcome. And this gap here is really the reason for why we exist as an organization. Innovation 360, we try to help you bridge this gap. So let's talk some methodology and motivations for innovation strategy. So why do we want to do innovation at all? The biggest reason is usually that you are running your business, your organization's operations, and you're reaching certain results. And by doing what you're doing right now, you may continue at a certain level for the foreseeable future. It might be that you will grow a little bit. It might be that you're under threat and will actually fall off a cliff in terms of growth. Most of the time, a lot of organizations feel that if things were going right, they should be somewhere else. They should be moving much faster. They should be growing a lot quicker. And you can reach growth in a number of different ways. So you can buy your way to growth. You can just try and win with your existing offers, of course. But maybe the best way of achieving growth is actually innovation. And to do that in an efficient way, you need a few things in place. So to manage your innovation, you need essentially 3 legs to stand on. And the first leg is to have a strategy. So you need to figure out what you're trying to do. You need to align your initiatives with your corporate strategy and whatever goals you may have. You need to make sure that you're innovating in line with whatever purpose, vision, mission your organization may have. You need to make sure that the strategy you're building is built on strong capabilities that you have. You got to try and build on your strengths. And it's about exploring new opportunities, essentially. That will then lead to a portfolio of projects that you will execute. That needs to be balanced. And we'll get to that. And then, of course, there needs to be execution. And that's governance. You need processes. You need an organization. You need operational models. You need a culture. And you need to handle both radical, so a bit more new founding innovation, as well as incremental just improvements. And I mean, that's pretty straightforward. We like to make it a bit more complicated with this picture, where essentially, so I hope you can see my little pointer here. What we usually try and do when we develop innovation strategy is essentially captured in this picture right here. So we do an external outlook to find opportunities and threats, and where we also build scenarios. So I'll warn you, this presentation today will not cover this a lot, but if you sign in to the conference next week, I will do a full presentation on how you do external outlook and work with pest-led analysis and how you build scenarios. And then we need to figure out what is our actual capabilities to take advantage of these opportunities that we find here with our external outlook. Do we have to build any new capabilities in order to survive or in order to grow at the rate that we want? So that means we have an opportunity space, and that opportunity space can contain all kinds of things. So we have to we have to try and filter it out to make sure that it's in line with what we're actually wanting to do as an organization. And we do that by looking at the purpose and vision and mission of the organization. We look at the corporate strategy, and the corporate strategy is there to varying degrees in organizations, but you always have a look at that when you define your innovation strategy. And then you look at your goals for innovation. So the goal could be to fulfill part of the growth gap. So we have a very good example with one of our Swedish clients, which is a finance institution that have clearly stated that they want to go from 17 to 24 billion in turnover. And one of those billions should come from innovation. Very clear and straightforward goal. And that will also then dictate what's the balance going to be with the risk we take. Other goals for innovation could be that you want to be seen as an innovative corporation that people want to work for, or something like that. Once you have all of this in place, both the opportunity space and the filter, you can build your coherent innovation strategy. And I'll very briefly explain how you do that. This then gives you strategic initiatives that needs to be executed by your system. And you have the portfolio where you have a mix of the risk, where we talk about horizons of risk, where horizon 1 is your core, improving what you already have to win where you stand right now. And horizon 3 is radical, where you find new options for growth. Horizon 2 is in between the two, where you scale things from horizon 3, and where you do things that will bring changes to horizon 1 but that you can't really handle with the organization there. Then you have an organization, or rather an innovation management system, that executes those projects. They also populate your portfolio with new ideas, new projects, and essentially they take care of governing the process to execute innovation. These two things are then connected to the rest of the company or the rest of the organization through operational models. And the operational models will look a little bit different depending on if it's Horizon 1 projects, Horizon 2 projects, or the Horizon 3 projects. And we'll have a small look at that too today. But we'll focus on strategy. So, where do we start? Normally, what we recommend is to start by getting a baseline. So where do we stand today? What's our capabilities today? What's our aspirations today? Where do we want to go? And we do this using one of our systems, InnoSurvey. And if you're interested in this, you can actually go to our homepage and you can try this on yourself, on your own organization, for free. So go to innovation360.com and have a go. Anyhow, from this measurement, we'll get a fairly good idea for where you stand in terms of your capabilities of executing in terms of innovation. The measurement, as we see it, is based on a framework that answers essentially why, what, and how of innovation, where why and what is the aspiration, It's about why are you innovating? Is it for profit or market? And so on. What are we trying to do to reach our aspiration? Is it products, processes, production, business model, etc.? And then a large part of the investigation is about how. So what's your leadership like? What's your culture like? What's your overall capability? What's your culture? What's your process? We also have a measurement for how well you fit with the ISO 56000 framework. And this gives you essentially information around a lot of the things that goes on in this picture for how you develop an innovation strategy. So obviously you find out about innovation capability. It tells you something about the goals for innovation. It gives you information on what innovation strategy you're trying to use and what you should plan to do. It also tells you something about your ability to execute in your portfolio in Horizon 1, 2, and 3. It tells you things about your innovation management system, and it tells you things about your operational model. So by doing that, you have a very good baseline of deciding, okay, this is where our strategy is going to go. With our method, within a survey and by doing interviews in organizations, we try to find what we call blockers and accelerators, as well as misalignments. And some of the major blockers that we see for innovation is silos, where people care about themselves and they don't let other people in. You have fiefdoms. Another one is a lack of faith in objectives, so people don't really believe in what you're setting out to do. No higher purpose is organizations where people just go and collect their paycheck. It's very hard to innovate if people are only there to do that and they don't want to do anything else in their work. Fear of failure, very common in larger organizations. You don't get rewarded for taking a risk, but you can get a slap on the hand or a slap on the wrist if you fail. And then also very common, can't deal with uncertainty. You need massive plans for everything. You are not good at experimenting, and so on. So how does this look in the real world? So let's get into a case. As I mentioned, the case we're going to go through is a SaaS company we work with here in Sweden. And they are owned by a large player in a specific, let's say you have probably at least used their parent company's services at some point, or you've heard of it. So this is a part of this major company, and they have had a major change in their strategic objectives. So they have been a cash cow for a very long time, and now they're being asked by ownership to become a growth engine because there's lots of opportunities in their space. So they came to us where they had a number of goals that they wanted to reach. So they wanted to grow their business. They needed to change their customer experience. They wanted to improve their system to make it more modular. And they wanted to really clarify their value proposition and brand recognition. And to reach those goals, we set out to build innovation as a habit for their organization to make sure that innovation is just not something that happens on Innovation Day once a month. It becomes part of the overall process of the company. We wanted to see and make sure that a culture was created where contribution really became appreciated and something that people wanted to take part in. This was a very incremental organization, and they wanted to try and shift the focus so to do something more challenging so that it can win a little bit better in the market. And then they had a lot of potential. They have very good people, but as an organization, it's kind of a nervous organization. So they want to get that hidden potential out and execute on that. So let's walk through the framework. What did we do with this company and what did it look like? So we did an inner survey with them and interviewed both management and middle management and some of the stakeholders. their suppliers and to some degree their customers. And what we found was that their overall capability for innovation was fairly low. So they scored, so InnoSurvey gives you an overall number for your innovation capability. We call innovation IQ, and they scored a 41 on the scale from 0 to 100. In the interviews, we also found that fear of failure was a large factor in their organization. And this was something that lived on for a long time. Even no one had any real examples of anyone really getting in trouble for failing. It was something that sort of stuck in the wall. And we also found that they had a general lack of ecosystems where they could get and find ideas for innovation, and they didn't really interact so much with their customers either. And we'll get to how we found that. So we gave them a recommendation where they need to choose a path for how they want to innovate. And we recommended something we called a need-seeking approach, where you try to find customer needs in a very direct way. They needed to remove this blocker of fear of failure, because fear of failure, as we said before, is one of the biggest blockers for innovation. So they had to try and work around that. And the way to do it is communicating, making sure that you learn how to fail in a safe way. We also recommended that they get their incremental innovation capabilities going first, so that they build some sort of capability and then try to go radical once they have that in place. And then, of course, just overall strengthen their capabilities and create an innovation engine. So that's a combination of different things that you've already seen. So they need to have an operational model, an innovation management system, and they need to have a clear portfolio. So some examples of what we found. So InnoSurvey asks a number of questions. It's 92 questions that you answer, from 1 that you don't agree at all to 5 you completely agree. When asked the question, management prioritizes innovation efforts and allocates adequate resources to them, only 20% of the employees agreed. So this is one of those things that gives you very good insight into your innovation strategy, in that, okay, this is a culture and mindset and communication problem. So if this is important to us, we need to communicate that it's important, and we need to make sure that it's visible that we're putting resources behind it. Another result from InnoSurvey is this wheel, or what we call the wheel of innovation, where you get an overall picture in this spider diagram of the innovation capabilities of the organization. And we could see here, so this upper left quarter is how you innovate within the market. And this lower right is how you interact with your customers when you innovate. And we could see that they had weaknesses in both these areas. And that essentially means that the two channels, or the two most effective channels to get and become innovative, or to get innovation to market, were close to this company. So they needed to develop at least one of these arms to try and become better. I've talked a little bit about innovation horizons, so we'll go through it again. So horizon 1 is your core. You optimize whatever the existing thing is, incremental product and service innovation, portfolio extensions, process innovations. So the SaaS company we did this investigation on, they had capabilities here, but not very high. Then horizon 3, where you look for new tech and business models, or horizon 2, where you scale up or reshape the existing business and operating models. Essentially, capabilities there were non-existent. So with that in hand, we could then go through and do a workshop where we developed a very quick and easy innovation strategy. And the innovation strategy resulted in a number of strategic initiatives. And that's always the goal when you do an innovation or a strategy or an innovation strategy. Find some initiatives that you can work around and that can guide your work going forward. So what we did was what we call pest-led. So we looked at macro drivers: political, economical, societal, technical, legal, environmental and demographical, to see, okay, what macro drivers are actually driving threats and opportunities for this organization, for this company forward. And we did that together with an extended part of the management team. We then walked them through the results from InnoSurvey and what recommendations came out of there. And then together with the management team, we looked at their vision. We had a goal exercise to break down, okay, what do you want to achieve here with your innovation work? And we had a short look at the corporate strategy that wasn't really in place, but they've done some work that could inform us. And then we developed a short and sweet innovation strategy where we looked at the business model as it looked now and how it could look in the future, and used some blue ocean frameworks to figure out, okay, what does this future mean? What do we need to change in our offerings? And we boil it down to 10 strategic initiatives that we then prioritized together. And again, this was done in a workshop, half-day workshop, roughly. So it's really fast. But the only reason we could do that is because we had this pretty substantial result from the InnoSurvey. It's again important, once you have this the strategy, how are you going to implement it? And that's what you need the operational model for. And if you look at the innovation processes in the different horizons, you have sort of typical examples from across the globe. So if you look at Horizon 1, when you innovate there, a lot of times you use a stage gate, where, if you're not familiar with that, it's you set up specific checkpoints for your development work, and you see if whatever results you come up with passes the gate. Agile is a massive area that is very typical for Horizon 1 innovation. In Horizon 3, there are a number of different approaches that work very well. So we work with something we call the hypothesis-based approach. And this is also where lean startup comes in, and design thinking. And then you have Horizon 2, where you have quite a few different things as well. We find that discovery-driven planning comes in here, and scaling lean, etc. But if we look at what the company was doing, we needed to find, okay, what processes are you actually doing in these horizons, and what capabilities do you have there, and how do you transfer the things that come out from these activities into your overall organization, and make sure that it creates bottom line and growth. And to do that, we did essentially what we call an operational model. It's essentially an audit, where we use this model here, where we look at what's the value creation process like, go through it from start to end, what's the ecosystems attached to this, what mandates should people working with this process have in terms of access to customers, markets, whatever resources they may need, where is it going to take place? Is it in Stockholm? Is it in some other of the locations for this organization? What's the organizational design going to look like? Who are going to be involved? What's the management system going to be like? Are you going to budget, make advanced budgets? Are you going to work as a venture capitalist, where you give a group of people just a little bit of money and let them do experiments? Who needs to talk to whom in the organization? And then, yeah, what's the budget actually going to look like? And when doing this audit for our example company, we found that in Horizon 1, they were fairly strong, sort of in the middle of the process. But in the beginning, they did not talk much to their customers. They didn't have a good idea for what their customer roadmap, or rather their product roadmap, should look like, given interactions with their customers. They also weren't following up their launches a lot. So they looked at, they would launch a piece of software or an update to a software, and they wouldn't really follow it up with promotions when suitable. And they didn't really have any budgets for Horizon 2 and 3. And it was pretty clear that if they dedicated the same resources to Horizon 1, 2, and 3, Horizon 2 and 3 were going to get squeezed. So given those findings, we sat together and they organized for better customer interaction. So they organized the teams to make sure that they have a product roadmap for each customer, created some new routines for commercial follow-up, set a new budget and financing cadence for Horizon 2 and 3 to make sure that there are resources dedicated to that. And they are considering to work with some external resources for Horizon 2 to make sure that it will be available and not squeezed by Horizon 1 needs. So end results was that we put a fairly basic innovation strategy in place using survey results and some short workshops combined with pest-led analysis. They have now created an innovation management system that is ticking on, and they are building capability for more radical innovation. And this is an organization that has been hit by the COVID crisis quite significantly. And we're still doing some projects with them, and they feel that innovation is more important than ever for them. So happy endings for them, and we are very hopeful that they will really go on the growth journey that they set out to be put on. As I said, I have not talked a lot about what external outlook looks like. We talked about innovation capability. So just as a teaser for next week, that's what my talk then will be about. And I will get you through what an external outlook is and how you can build scenarios using your own personal sandbox to look at what the future will look like and what opportunities will be placed before you. All right, and that's it.
Thank you, Johan. We're really looking forward to next week and a little bit more about scenario planning and going back to that great thing where we are actually predicting different versions of our future and developing scenarios for them to, if they happen, what we are going to do. Something that I don't think companies are accustomed to, at least here in Serbia from our experience. For me, this was a great reminder of the great work you do and how actually great the assessment tool is. I went it more hypothetically through it just to see what kind of valuable insight it offers, and it's really great in terms of a lot of details you get in all areas you mentioned. And I don't want to waste any more of the time because our audience had a lot of questions, and I would love for us to answer as many of them. And I think they came as you talked through your slides. So maybe going back to the beginning, to the elements of innovation strategy.
Yeah.
We have a question from someone who asks, for the companies, which one of those is easiest to discuss and determine, and why to discuss and maybe to analyze?
To answer that question, you have to define easy, right? So it's intellectually easy, or it's easy to get an actual result into the organization, and those are two different things. So external outlook, to do pest-led analysis and look at, okay, these are the opportunities and threats in our future, can be a bit intellectually challenging perhaps, but it's not threatening anyone's work role. It doesn't require any change in the organization. So that's fairly easy to do with whomever or with an organization, and finding those opportunities and even building scenarios. Going and do an innovation capability measurement, again, if you do it the way we do it, it's a straightforward exercise, but the findings, essentially what comes out is recommendations for change. And change is always difficult, and change is to some degree almost always painful. So in terms of what the results imply and how difficult it is to do something with it, it's much easier with the external outlook, because that's all good and fun. Whereas looking at capabilities and what you should build and what you have and have not can be a bit more painful, but both are straightforward. Then, of course, it's not very common that organizations have clear goals for innovation. Mm-hmm. And agreeing on those goals can also be, depending on the organization, can be tough. But you're almost guaranteed to have a better result if you have agreed on the goals beforehand. So.
Yeah, a lot of questions. I'm trying to kind of have some flow. If we go, okay, I will stick to these blocks, and it's something that is always interesting to learn from experience. How often do you revise and refresh your innovation strategy once you are having one, implementing and receiving the feedback from the market? Is it once a year, twice a year, or every 3 years? I don't know.
So again, that comes down to definitions. Maybe this overview and this exercise, you might never do it again. Because the idea is that the system is going to find new things and populate your innovation portfolio over time. So I don't have an answer that you do this once every year or 2 years. If you feel that a shift in your environment is coming, then you can do just the external outlook. And that's easy to do, as I said, and you can do that every 6 months or whatever if you want. Innovation capabilities, once you feel that you're getting some results there, it can be, we have clients that measure their innovation capability once a year or even once every 6 months. But that's more to make sure that they're building their capability. It's not so much to like update their strategy. But if you haven't done anything with your innovation strategy in 3 years, it's probably time to have a look again.
Definitely. And we mentioned here innovation portfolio, and it's always interesting to learn how much actually we're investing in projects all over the 3 horizons. So in I don't know, from your thinking to what would be good to what you're seeing with your clients, what is the situation here? I know this framework says 70-20-10 or
yeah, I mean, the classic is the Google 70-20-10. What do we actually see with clients? Clients that work with us, a lot of times I have something like 99 in Horizon 1. And I mean, just the example I showed you now, everything Horizon 1, right? So that's fairly common. If you haven't thought about or made a conscious effort, it's very easy to let's just do what's going to give us something new, next quarter or next year. Let's play it safe. But some studies have shown that if you actually balance your innovation portfolio, usually the return from your activities is inverted as compared to how much you put in. So if you have a 70-20-10 in terms of returns, you have 10-20-70. There are indications that that's the case, at least if you are capable enough in your horizon. So yeah, it will have to depend on your growth, essentially your growth gap, right? That's going to determine what the distribution should be.
Yeah, and ambitious there. If we go back to the assessment tool, we have a couple of questions.
Mhm.
One is about baseline indicators, and which one do you find most important?
So I don't think we have a slide to, let's see if we have something that shows it.
Maybe just with the
There we go. I mean, for me, every company will have their own sort of footprint in a survey. So it's hard to say that something is more important than the other, but one I really like and one I really look at first is this one here. So it's not a capability, it's not your innovation process, it's not your culture. It's if you answer the question, management prioritizes innovation efforts and allocate adequate resources to them. And if you answer that in a similar way to this company here, where only 20% of employees agree, then that's probably your biggest problem to start off with. That's sort of the baseline. Because if you're going to develop an innovation strategy and management doesn't care about it, it's not going to do you much good, most likely. So that's one of my favorite things.
And someone saw the number of 41 as a score for your client, so
Yeah.
he or she is wondering what would be the good score. What's, I don't know, if you're classifying them throughout this.
Yeah, let's see if I find that slide. There we go. I mean, 41 is not completely terrible. It's I mean, they have a lot of things to strengthen and to change. The big thing about them was this complete lack of Horizon 2 and Horizon 1 innovation, and this massive fear of failure in the organization. So I mean, 41 is not a catastrophic score. I think the highest score in the database is something like 73. So getting above 75 is very difficult, should say. So, but getting somewhere in the 51 to 70 range is completely doable for any organization, and you should probably look to be there at least.
Great. I mean, people try out the tool and see what will your score be.
Yeah, but actually, that's a caveat there is that you will not get an innovation IQ from the free test because you need more people to answer to get an innovation IQ. But yes, you can at least guess your way to your innovation IQ by looking at this diagram here, how you compare to the average of the database.
Of course. One question that's really interesting to me is that someone asked if you had a client that had innovation strategy in place and this COVID situation and crisis happened to us, and they came back to you by asking you to revise everything all over again. We see that a lot of companies are not actually finding any time to do any retrospective on what just happened to them in the last 6 months, nonetheless, to really assess the environment and what's important for them in some kind of new future, with all the trends being permanent or not. Did you had something like this for someone approaching you and saying,
Yeah.
like, this is affecting us so much that we have to
Absolutely. I mean, that's exactly where scenario analysis comes in. So where you collect all these things that may or may not happen to you, you try to classify them and figure out, how certain is this, whatever it is, this macro driver that I'm now facing, how certain is that is going to affect us? Is it going to be important? And then you classify all the macro factors essentially. If it's for sure, so certain, and it's important, okay, then then you need to address it. You're just going to push out some sort of response out into your organization. If it's uncertain, so we don't know what's going to happen, but whatever happens, it is important. You can then start to build scenarios and try to figure out, okay, how could the future look like if this goes this way or that way or the third way. And then you can look, okay, is there any of these scenarios that we build up where we are under massive threat? Is there somewhere where there's massive opportunity? When we build these different scenarios, is there something with these scenarios that are common factors? Is there something we should be doing that will prepare us for a lot of these scenarios? So that's a quick exercise. It's a very useful exercise. And again, it's not as painful as a change project. So that's something you can do if you're in that situation.
Is this kind of assessment something that's suitable for small and medium-sized businesses?
Yes, we say typically if you're fewer than 10 people in your organization, then okay, you can still do it, but you could interview everyone in your organization essentially and get an even richer result. Once you start to be 20 people or more, it becomes really useful and valuable. And the more people, then of course, the more rich data you get out. And if you are, ideally, you should be a company that has a stable business. So a startup, again, we come into definitions, right? So a startup to me is it's an experiment to find a scalable, repeatable business model. And you only really have horizon one. You just need to find one horizon one. That's a startup. So it doesn't, you don't need an innovation management system because the whole thing is an experiment to find something, right? So for a startup, it doesn't work. It's not meant to work for startups. But once you're a company that has some sort of a regular workable business model and you have a need for innovation to broaden your perspectives or broaden your business, then it works. But somewhere around 10 people in the organization is where it stops to be super useful.
I must say that we have run out of time and we have unanswered questions, but I tried to wrap up some of them. And guys, I invite you all to join us next Wednesday for a bit more of Q&A after your talk at the conference. We will also have video recordings from this webinar at our YouTube channel, so you can go over details from this presentation. I find it always very useful. And Johan, thank you once again for taking your time today to be here with us, to present us what you do and how you help companies, and share some of your thoughts with this whole current situation and the situation we're in for I don't know how long, but it is that new normal that we're in. Have a great rest of the day, and see you very soon next Wednesday.
Thank you. And for those who have any lingering questions, you can always reach me on LinkedIn, add me there or send a question that way, and I will do my best to give you an answer.
Thank you once again.
Thank you, Sandra.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you everyone for being here with us. We will also try to go around some of the answers for you, and we can have them for Johan next Wednesday answered after the lecture. And see you next Wednesday at our next Innovation Space webinar really soon. Thank you.